Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Marina Pavlov. I'm the president CEO of the Florida Association of Nonprofits. And it's an organization that covers the state and serves 501c3 organizations. We have 50,000 nonprofits in the state of Florida, a little bit more. Um, and we try to serve all of them with our information and our advice and our savings programs. We do several things. We do six things. We educate. Well, it's called, what we do is we do the service of the hearts. We help, we educate, we advocate, we research, we train, and we save you money. So with, without any further ado, I'd like to ask Lynn to maybe explain those things.
Hearts,
Yes.
difference between for-profits and nonprofits is the heart. And we have programs that spell heart. Helping, we have helpline, and we offer assistance to everybody. Educating, we have a certificate in nonprofit management that covers all aspects of nonprofit management. Advocating, you head up to Tallahassee, virtually or really, to talk to all the legislators so they understand that for-profits are a big economic issue, as well as getting things done in the community. Research, we find resources to share both information and real stuff. Training, we offer training like this webinar. And we have savings, we have preferred partners like First Nonprofit that helps our members, providing services to nonprofits and giving a discount to our members.
Thank you. And we have membership benefits from A to Z. And we hope you will become a member. And if you already are, if you'll pass on the message to other nonprofits that they can join too. We have our signature program is a Sunshine Certificate in Nonprofit Management, and that has 11 courses in it. And then we can tell you more at another time. But for right now, we're so happy to be able to offer this class to you. It's
We lost Marina. So let's introduce Cecilia. Cecilia is Vice President of Membership Services with First Nonprofit. She's been doing this for, I'm not gonna tell you how long, but she's very experienced and knows what she's doing, and she can tell you how to save 30 to 40% on your unemployment cost. Thank you, Cecilia.
Great. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Marina and Fano, for hosting this webinar. I believe everyone will have a copy of the slides, and it's being recorded so that I'm going to go through everything. And at the end, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those questions. Well, the biggest thing that's hit unemployment is the pandemic, right? And I know there's been a lot of numbers thrown out there, but the latest, it's about $656 billion and still ticking because we're not through the end of the year since March 2020. And there were additional programs that were added from 2021 and 2020. There were also different individuals that were added to unemployment as well. Typically, unemployment is for employees only that are connected to an employer. But this time, the programs were expanded to allow gig workers. And gig workers is just kind of an acronym, but it's for independent contractors, consultants. They were really looking at the Uber drivers, the Lyft drivers, people that are in business for themselves and not attached to an employer per se in the traditional sense. And they were not left out of the funds during the pandemic. And in many cases, individuals received more than the 26 weeks because of all the extensions. Those have all finished now. After September 6th, they are all finished. So now everything is reverting back to normalcy, hopefully, in the unemployment realm. And that means that those workers that typically would be excluded are going to be excluded now going forward, unless this new administration continues them to be part of unemployment. But they're going to revert back to not being eligible for unemployment going forward. So that's the biggest thing that I wanted to share. The other part of what happened with the pandemic as it relates to unemployment was there was a lot of fraud. Myself personally was a victim of an unemployment claim fraudulently filed against me. Luckily, we were able obviously to nip it right away before any funds were released. But these millions and millions of dollars across the country that were paid out to hackers, definitely in the dark web. Some people that were here in, US citizens did receive the money fraudulently. And that's definitely going to cause a huge effect on these states in particular that I've got highlighted in red and in orange. You'll see Florida there. That can definitely go up to red as we get through the end of the year, but it will probably still just be between 10 and 13%. But when you're talking about those numbers, it's millions and millions of dollars that the state is out, those funds, and they will have to raise their tax schedule and they will have to change things in order to get that money back and replenish it. So it's very unfortunate that, the bad guys really took advantage of all those dollars, but it was very easy to get unemployment. The state unemployment agencies were really not able to handle the work from home. So the quick switch with the lockdown left a lot of these state unemployment agencies left with antiquated technology. And so there you have the door open for fraud cases because they moved everything online, but then no one was really checking and they didn't really have the infrastructure with the technology to check those online applications. Basically, everyone was getting paid. Anyone who filed was essentially getting paid for unemployment. So that was a huge problem with COVID. And because of that, some of these states, even though they did get money from the federal government, in order to keep up with that backlog, I know you probably have seen in the news that people were waiting in lines and lines, or they were on the phone trying to get their benefits. Well, the states ran out of money. These states here in particular had to borrow additional funds. I'm here in Chicago, so you'll see Illinois, $4 billion we had to borrow still from the government. We have an outstanding loan, and so there'll be interest on that if it's not paid back. So the states again will have to raise their taxes in order to pay for all of these different loans and programs that they had to fund, and the fraud. Well, nonprofits actually have a choice instead of just paying that tax. For-profits don't have a choice. They have to pay a tax, but nonprofits do. They can continue to pay into that state system, which is a traditional, you receive a rate notice at the end of the year, and then you give it to your payroll provider and they submit that rate methodically every quarter. But understand you're paying money into a non-refundable reserve, and you're also subsidizing the unemployment claims of the private sector. So you're paying for a lot of these fraudulent claims of the for-profit, the larger Walmarts of the world and McDonald's restaurants and all of these different companies instead of just managing your own. So reimbursing is the technical term, but it also means self-insured. What a nonprofit can do to minimize their exposure is to self-insure. And that is really the cheapest way. And Congress gave nonprofits this exemption because nonprofits are mission driven and they don't have the extra funds to pay into a non-refundable reserve or to overpay for other people's claims. Their experience is not their own. So this is a section from the Internal Revenue Code, and the highlighted section essentially says that the states are obligated to allow 501c3 nonprofits the option to switch to reimbursing instead of paying the taxes like a traditional employer. And then there's different rules for every state. So we're going to focus on Florida. There's different deadlines that apply for nonprofits. You do have to be in good standing. If you're taxing, you're eligible for the program. If you're already self-insured, you're eligible. Government entities are eligible, and Native American Indian entities are eligible. This really plays, knowing what your options are is crucial for nonprofits, because employers need to know that when it comes to unemployment, the employees, they actually have the benefit of the free guidance and the assistance from the state to get unemployment. The employer is the one who has to go to the unemployment appeal process. You have to present your facts of why you're contesting the unemployment. You have to have your witness. You have to have all the documentation. So the burden of proof is on the employer. So on top of absorbing the costs, so I laid out all those outside lighting costs that nonprofits really can't control. You can't control those costs. You have to then look internally. What can you do to keep your costs down? And having representation, knowing how to fight an unemployment claim is key to keeping your unemployment costs down, because the burden of proof is on the employer. The state is going to side with the employee unless the employer disputes it. And if you do dispute their claim, you have to have the facts. You have to have the documents. Well, how much money are we talking about? Now that the $600 and the $300 is finished, I want to make sure everybody can see here. The minimum is $32 a week. So part-timers can receive benefits all the way up to $275 is the max. Okay. And the employers right now, if they're paying taxes, those of you that may be familiar with that wage base of $7,000, what that means is the employer pays taxes on the first $7,000 the employee earns. But if that employer has turnover and they have to hire somebody again, they start paying taxes again on the next $7,000 that somebody has earned. So even if the person who left didn't file unemployment, they're paying taxes again. So if you have turnover in your organization, you could definitely be over subsidizing your unemployment tax. In Florida, the minimum is pretty low. It's just 0.10%. And the max is 5.4. This max and this wage base, they've been the same for about 10 years. So we're going to see what happens with Florida because of COVID and, all of these additional costs that happen, to see if Florida is going to make any changes. The announcement hasn't come out yet. If they do hold it steady at these numbers, it'll be kind of artificial, and that's probably just to help keep the economy going. but it's going to have to come up maybe in 2022 or 2023. It's going to have to come up eventually. The feds are trying to get this number, this $7,000 number, to 15,000. If the feds make that transition and move the benchmark, then all the states have to follow that. They can't be below 15,000. Okay. And with this administration, there's a lot of conversation right now. And even in the past administration, there was a lot of conversation about changing the unemployment programs, raising the base. And so that will result in higher tax payments to the employers. And they're also going to keep up with the cost of living, and they're going to probably continue to look at increasing these benefits as well. Okay, so the $32 a week, if for the full 19 weeks, that would come out to $608. But if you were receiving $275 and you stayed on for the 19 weeks, you're going to get just over $5,000. But this is 2021 information. And again, Florida hasn't released next year's yet. So we're not sure if it's going to just hold steady or if it's going to be increased. We believe that with all of those factors and everything in place, that it's probably going to go up a bit. But you know, who's to say at this point what's going to happen? But you can see the overpayment rate. And these are numbers that the states have to report to the feds. So they had to admit that they overpaid 9% of the time. So that means employers are overpaying at least 9% of the time when you're paying in taxes, which is just another reason why nonprofits should be very vigilant in trying to insulate themselves from all these outside factors that they can't control. When you're reimbursing, you control your own costs. You know who's left your agency, and then you can just easily figure out how much they're going to get in unemployment. And that's where First Nonprofit helps. Now, this is not rocket science. People can go on to the Florida website. Now everything is online. And review their unemployment information. This is the time of year to do it, and why I'm so grateful for FANO for having this timely seminar, because the deadline for Florida nonprofits to think about, should I stay paying taxes? Should I become self-insured? That'll be coming up at the end of November. And Florida does not grant an extension. So you really need to have investigated this option before the end of November. So we're coming into about the last 60 days in the home stretch. But you can log into the unemployment portal. You can pull up your tax rate. You can see what your benefits are. If you're not sure, you can also ask your payroll provider. But you know, locate them, print them out, look at them, see what your contributions are, less the unemployment claims. And if not, you can send them to us. We'll take a look at them for you. We'll provide a free analysis, and we'll let you know whether you can save money or not. If you can't save any money, we're going to tell you that, but 9 times out of 10, we are saving nonprofits. The amounts vary by agency. So we've seen some agencies save as little as a few $100s a year to several $1,000s a year. What we're going to look at is the prior claims activity. And if you have them in quarterly printout format, that's great. Or the annual rate notice is the best one, because that gives us a whole year to look at. And we'd like to look at 3 years worth of history. So 2021, 2020, and 2019. And your gross wages. That will really determine what your savings would be. And it's the best way that a nonprofit can reduce your operating costs. What we do at First Nonprofit is we'll review that information. The average savings is about 35%. Then we will ask the nonprofit to make payments in 4 equal installments. And what happens is the employees still file with the state. We become a third-party administrator, and we pay the state back dollar for dollar on your former employees' unemployment claims. So your employees, there's no change for them. No change for them. There's no pooling costs. We also provide expert claim service and hearing representation. A key part of keeping your claims down is responding to the state in a timely manner, giving the state the documentation they need. If you fired someone for cause for, let's say, sleeping on the job, or, driving one of the vans and they didn't have their driver's license and they get into a car accident and, some of the residents are hurt, and you discharge that person, they file for unemployment, they say they were let go, they were laid off. You want to make sure that you have all of those details. So we help you with the claims representation. We review your documents with our partner Equifax and represent you at the hearing. Sometimes it can be intimidating when you're in front of a legal representative at the state for the unemployment adjudication, and some employers can be intimidated by that. So we do represent you, and sometimes you don't even have to speak. The facts will just present themselves. First Nonprofit has portals, so our members can look at their account balance. They can see how much has been paid out in unemployment claims. We're very transparent. Whereas with the state, sometimes you don't know who has received an unemployment claim. You don't know how long it's gone on. So our program is very tech savvy, and you can look up your information and your account balance and who's collecting at any time. There's no pooling cost. There's no change to your employees. As I mentioned, we make the payments to the state agency on your behalf. So we would pay the bill that you would normally have to pay, or your payroll provider would pay. First Nonprofit would pay that bill, and we would review it and audit it and make sure it's legitimate, make sure that there is no fraud. If there is a case pending, we want to make sure that if there's a decision coming that we don't have to pay that claim, then we're not going to pay it. We'll wait for a credit, but we're going to represent your agency on all unemployment issues. So now you have a vested partner. Like FANO, we represent other associations across the country. These are some other state associations that we work with across the country. So if you're an organization and you have employees outside of Florida, we can definitely help you as well. We've got over 2,100 clients. These are the different types of nonprofits that we work with. So it really runs the whole spectrum. And FANO has a free application where you can receive a quote for us. We ask that you try to get it back to us before Halloween, because again, the Florida deadline, if you want to switch as a nonprofit and be self-insured for 2022, instead of paying those taxes, you've got to do it this year, and you have to do it before the end of November. Otherwise, in 2022, if you call us up in December or in January, it's going to be too late, and the state is just going to issue you another rate, and you won't have another chance. So this is kind of like with all the health benefits that are coming up, health insurance. Unemployment needs to not be at the top of employers' minds as well, to review that, because it is an operating expense and you do have a way to cut your costs. There's my contact information, and here's my full contact information. As I said, I'm in Chicago, but you can reach me by email and my phone number. I'm happy to have a one-on-one call with anyone as well if they have questions about their particular situation. Thank you.
Cecilia, I was kind of upset when I saw that Florida, even in the midst of the pandemic, when everybody's borrowing money and losing so much, they made $21 million on overpayments to from unemployment. That's just disgusting. We're already paying so much and losing so much to fraud and everything else. and they had $21 million to put in their pocket.
Yep,
Time for nonprofits to get out.
it is definitely. And I really appreciate you helping spread the word. And so, we'd like to help as many as possible.